Imagine waking up one day and realizing you're no longer human. That's exactly what happens to Jen. After an accident transfers Bruce Banner's gamma radiation into her body, she becomes a powerful new version of the Hulk. But just when she thinks she can go back to her normal life, she gets fired, becomes a worldwide sensation, and is handed a dangerous case involving a man who can turn into a monster. And that's when things get seriously out of control. The series opens with a beautiful young woman named Jen who works as a lawyer, and at this point, she has a case coming up in court. She is standing in front of her best friend Nikki, practicing the argument she plans to deliver in court. And once Jen finishes her rehearsal, Nikki starts complimenting her and telling her how impressive her delivery is. She even tells Jen that there is no way she's losing this. Jen gets ready to head to court, but before she leaves, she reveals something. That makes it clear she is definitely not an ordinary woman like everyone else, because Jen has the ability to transform into a female version of the Hulk. Then Jen starts explaining how she ended up with these incredible powers, and we go back several months in time. We see Jen on a road trip with her cousin Bruce Banner, the same Bruce Banner who is actually the superhero known as the Hulk, and can transform into the massive green monster. Years earlier, Bruce was involved in a terrible accident, and during that accident, his body was exposed to an enormous amount of gamma radiation that should have killed him instantly, because it was far too powerful for any normal human being to survive. But Bruce was different. His genetic makeup was unlike that of an ordinary human, and somehow his body survived the radiation. And it did something else too. It gave Bruce the ability to transform into the Hulk, and when he gets angry, the Hulk has an unbelievable level of destructive power. The kind of strength no one could ever imagine. Over time, though, Bruce learned how to control that power. He figured out when to transform and when to remain in his human form. And eventually, he started using those abilities to fight evil and protect people from all kinds of threats. At this point, Bruce is in his human form, riding in the car with Jen. While the two of them talk, everything seems completely normal, until suddenly, a spaceship appears right in front of them. Jen quickly swerves the car to avoid it, but they lose control, and the vehicle flips over several times. Of course, both of them are badly injured and knocked unconscious, but Jen wakes up first. Even though her hands are badly injured, she rushes over to pull Bruce out of the wreckage, and while she is getting him out, Bruce is bleeding heavily. Some of his blood drips onto Jen's injured hand, and their blood mixes together. And that's when Jen suddenly feels something strange happening inside her. Her body begins turning green. She loses control of her senses and has no idea what's happening to her. She takes off running through the woods like she's completely out of her mind, until eventually she passes out. Later that night, Jen wakes up in the middle of the forest, but she has no memory of what happened and has absolutely no idea where she is or how she even got there. She starts wandering through the woods until she eventually comes across a nightclub. She rushes into the bathroom looking completely wrecked, and by pure coincidence, a few women walk in and find her there. They immediately realize something is wrong and decide to help her. They even give her some clothes to wear since hers are completely torn up. Jen thanks them and asks if they can lend her a phone. She needs to call Bruce and have him come pick her up. After calling Bruce and telling him where she is, Jen goes outside and waits for him in front of the nightclub. While she's waiting, 3 guys start hitting on her. Jen tries to ignore them and get away from the situation, but they keep bothering her and refusing to leave her alone. Eventually, Jen loses her temper. And then it happens again. She transforms into the Hulk completely against her will. Eventually, Bruce comes in and pulls her away from. Then he knocks her unconscious. When Jen wakes up, she finds herself at Bruce's house. She changes her clothes and starts looking for him, eventually making her way down to the basement. But this isn't just any basement. It's Bruce's private lab that he built himself. Down there, she finds Bruce in his Hulk form, except he's completely conscious and fully in control of himself. Jen demands an explanation for everything that's happening to her. So Bruce starts explaining. When the two of them were injured and their blood mixed together, the gamma radiation inside Bruce's blood was transferred into hers under normal circumstances. That amount of radiation should have killed her. But because Jen is his cousin and shares similar genetic traits with him, her body was able to survive the radiation and transform her into a Hulk just like him. Bruce tells her he figured all of this out after taking samples of her blood and running a series of tests. Once he's done explaining, he takes those blood samples and gets rid of them completely. He warns her that their blood can't fall into the wrong hands, because whoever gets exposed to it will either die or end up transforming into a Hulk like them. Jen tells Bruce that she wants nothing to do with any of this. She just wants to go back to being a normal woman. But Bruce tells her that's impossible, because if there were a way to reverse it, he would have done it himself a long time ago. The best thing he can do is teach her how to control her powers, when to transform, and how to stay in control once she does. Jen is devastated by the news, and she goes off to eat while feeling completely miserable because she realizes she may never be normal again. Bruce sits down with her and tells her that she needs to start adapting to her new life and try to distance herself from other people. But more importantly, she needs to learn how to control her powers. Bruce reminds her that it took him 15 years to fully master his own abilities, so she should expect this to take a long time. He takes her through a series of exercises and starts teaching her how to control the exact moment she transforms, putting her under intense pressure and fear to trigger the transformation during their very first training session. Jin transforms into the Hulk and starts tearing the lab apart. Bruce assumes she's completely lost control, so he tries to calm her down, but then he realizes something that completely catches him off guard. Jin is fully conscious. She's talking to him normally, as if nothing has changed at all, despite being in her Hulk form. Bruce spent years trying to stay conscious while transformed, and somehow Jin manages to do it almost effortlessly. He tells her that this takes a huge burden off his shoulders, and now they can move on to the next stage of her training. This time, he needs to teach her how to transform back into her normal human form, because if she can't control that part, she could end up stuck as the Hulk for a very long time. So Bruce starts teaching her a technique that's almost trying to help her calm herself down enough to return to her human form. He explains that her mind needs to be completely clear and relaxed. Only then will she be able to transform back. And eventually, Bruce actually manages to teach her how to control the transformation. Now Jin can switch back to her normal form whenever she wants. As the training continues, Bruce starts noticing something surprising. Jin is learning incredibly fast. And in most areas, she's actually a little stronger than Bruce himself. After a short while, Jin manages to get a really good handle on her powers and learns how to control them. She asks Bruce when she'll finally be able to leave and go back to her life as a lawyer. But Bruce tells her there are still some important preparations she needs to go through before she can become a superhero. Jin immediately tells him she doesn't want to be a superhero. She just wants to be a normal lawyer and live her life like any other woman. Bruce tries to convince her not to waste such an incredible gift. But Jin tells him that he's a superhero who saves the world from danger. But despite all that, he's completely alone and isolated from everyone. Nobody checks on him. Nobody reaches out to him. And nobody really cares what happens to him. Jin tells him she wants something different. She wants to have a family, friends, and a normal life. She gets into her car and starts to leave, so Bruce tries to stop her by force. But Jin fights back, and the two of them end up going at it until they accidentally destroy the bar Bruce built. They finally stop fighting and sit down together to repair the bar. Bruce tells Jin that if she really wants to go back to her old life, she's free to do it. He promises he won't try to stop her again. Bruce walks her back to her car and tells her that if she ever changes her mind, she can always reach out to him. Then he says goodbye and lets her leave, giving her the chance to go back and see what kind of life she can build for herself. And now we return to the present. After Jin finishes telling us the whole story, she explains that only her family and her best friend Nikki know about her ability to transform into the Hulk. Jin heads to court and gets herself ready to deliver her argument. But before she can even begin, a mysterious woman suddenly storms into the courtroom for reasons no one understands. Jin immediately hides from her. But Nikki goes over to her and tells her this is the perfect moment to transform into the Hulk and save everyone. Jin finally works up the courage and transforms into the Hulk right in front of everyone in the courtroom. She takes down the woman and saves the entire situation with ease. After what happened, every news outlet starts talking about Jin the lawyer who can transform into the Hulk. The woman who saved an entire courtroom from an unexpected attack. Jin becomes incredibly famous almost overnight, and pretty much everyone in the country is talking about her. Before long, she's the biggest trend in the country. People start calling her Miss Hulk. We see Jin and Nikki walking into an ordinary bar, but everyone inside is fascinated by her powers. They start cheering for her and calling her Miss Hulk. Nikki keeps trying to convince Jin that she should embrace being a superhero, but Jin completely refuses. She tells Nikki she's going to stay a lawyer no matter what, because superheroes don't get paid and they don't even have health insurance. At the end of the day, being a superhero just doesn't pay the bills. But before they can continue their conversation, Jin's boss walks in. He tells her that they lost the case she had been working on, apparently because she transformed into the Hulk and saved the jury during the incident in court. The other law firms around them started talking about what happened, and rumors began spreading that the jury would be biased in her favor after she had saved their lives. So the firm decided to intentionally let the case go, because they were worried about their reputation. And all of this happened because of her, because of what she did in that courtroom. That's why her boss tells her she's fired from the firm. Jen is completely devastated because now her entire future as a lawyer is suddenly at risk. From that point on, Jen starts applying to law firms everywhere. But every firm turns her down because of all the controversy surrounding her. And no matter where she applies, she can't find a job. One day, while she's sitting with Nikki searching for job openings online, Jen gets a message from her mom inviting her to a family dinner that night. Jen is feeling completely depressed at this point and doesn't want to go. But Nikki convinces her to show up and take her mind off everything. So when night comes, Jen goes to her family's house and sits down for dinner with everyone, but she's clearly uncomfortable and doesn't feel like being there at all. One minute, they're asking her about the job she lost. The next, they're bringing up her superpowers, the very powers that got her fired in the first place. And they keep making comments that only make her feel worse. Eventually, her dad realizes how upset she is, so he takes her downstairs to the basement where they can talk privately. He tells Jen that everything is going to get better, that things will eventually work themselves out. And most importantly, he tells her how proud he is of her. He can't believe she's managed to keep going after everything she's been through. And he keeps encouraging her and reminding her that he's always there for her. Jen is deeply touched by what he says and thanks him for understanding her and standing by her. Afterward, Jen leaves and heads to a bar to have a few drinks. While she's there, a man named Holden approaches her and starts talking to her. Holden tells Jen that he's actually the one who convinced her former boss to fire her because he wants her to come work for him instead. Jen agrees immediately, without even thinking about it, and without asking what the job actually is. She's applied everywhere and gotten nowhere. So this feels like her only real chance to get back to work. The next day, Jen goes to the company and meets with Holden. She asks him what exactly she's supposed to be doing. He explains that more and more people with superpowers are appearing every day, and as their numbers grow, so do the problems they create. That's why he decided to create a special division at his firm specifically for people with superhuman abilities. And Jen is going to run that division, partly because of her current fame and partly because she has superpowers herself. Then Holden gives her one very specific instruction. She needs to stay in her Hulk form while she's at work. Because, as far as he's concerned, the Hulk is much more valuable to him than Jen's normal appearance. Holden takes her to her new office, and that's where Jen finds Nikki waiting for her. Jen had asked Holden to hire Nikki as her assistant, and he agreed to bring her onto the team. Jen starts talking to Nikki about how frustrated she is. She's worried that everyone is going to assume she only got the job because of how she looks as the Hulk, and not because she's actually a skilled lawyer. Nikki tells her she completely understands where she's coming from, but an opportunity like this isn't going to come around again. She can't afford to let it slip away. Later, Jen sits down with Holden to receive her very first case. And she's completely shocked when she finds out what that case is, getting a man named Emil Blonsky released from prison. The moment Jen hears his name, she freezes Emil. Blonsky is a dangerous criminal who's being held in a maximum security prison. He has the ability to transform into a monster just like Bruce, although his appearance and abilities are completely different, and he's incredibly powerful. Blonsky has actually fought Bruce before, and he nearly killed him, but Bruce eventually managed to defeat him, and Blonsky has been locked up ever since. Jen immediately refuses to take the case. But Holden tells her that nobody else is getting it. She's the only lawyer he's willing to put on the case. And if she refuses to work on it, then she won't be working for him at all. He tells her he'll give her some time to think about it, and she can come back and let him know whether she's taking the case or walking away from the job. Holden advises her to meet with Emil first, and then decide whether she wants to take the case. And everything about Emil makes it seem like he's incredibly dangerous, the kind of person who absolutely should not be released. But when Jen finally meets him, he's in his human form and looks completely ordinary. Emil starts talking to her and explains that he's learned how to control himself and the monster inside him, just like she has. He tells her how deeply he regrets the things he did in the past, and that he's gotten older and wants to spend whatever time he has left living freely and peacefully, like a normal person. Jen is moved by what he tells her, and she gets the feeling that he's being completely sincere. She tells him she'll think about it and decide whether she's going to take his case. The next day, Jen calls Bruce and tells him everything about Emil's case. She asks for his opinion. Does he think she should take the case or stay away from it? Bruce tells her that his fight with Emil happened so long ago that he's practically forgotten about it. He explains that people can change over time, and there's a very good chance Emil really has changed and deserves another chance. Bruce gives Jen his blessing to take the case. After hanging up with Bruce, Jen calls Holden and tells him she's agreed to represent Emil. Holden responds, "That's great news. Turn on the TV and see what's happening." Then he hangs up. Jen is confused, so she turns on the television, and that's when she sees a video of Emil making the rounds online. He's participating in an underground fighting match while transformed into the monster. Apparently, he somehow escaped from prison, and nobody knows how he managed to get out. Jin is completely shocked. She immediately heads to the prison where Emil had been held, but somehow, he's right there behind bars like nothing ever happened. Jin demands an explanation for the escape that every news outlet is talking about. Emil tells her he didn't actually escape. Instead, someone forced him out of prison somehow and made him carry out a mysterious mission that we'll learn more about later. Once the mission was complete, Emil willingly returned to prison. Even though he could have easily escaped for good, Jin asks him, "Who was the person who forced you to do it?" Emil tells her the person was a sorcerer and a very famous superhero named Wong. So Jin decides she needs to meet this Wong and find out why he forced Emil to break out of prison in the first place. She sends him a message, and Wong actually responds. He eventually shows up at her office to meet with her. Wong confirms that everything Emil told her was true. He really did force Emil to leave prison, but there was a simple reason behind it. Wong had been training for a fight and needed an extremely powerful opponent to practice against Jin. Finds the whole explanation a little strange, but she understands where he's coming from. After all, he's a sorcerer and a superhero who needed someone strong enough to challenge him. Jin tells Wong that he needs to testify in Emil's hearing and explain exactly what happened, because Emil can't be released until they know the truth about his escape. Wong agrees to testify in court. The next day, Jin heads to the prison where Emil is being held because the hearing is going to take place there. They still don't trust Emil enough to transfer him to a regular courtroom, so the entire trial has to happen inside the prison. The hearing begins, and Emil delivers his statement to everyone in the room. He explains how deeply he regrets every crime he committed, and how prison completely rehabilitated him and changed him into a different person. He insists that he would never hurt anyone again, no matter what happens, and that he can now control the monster inside him and stay in control under any circumstances. Jin also brings in several witnesses to prove that Emil has genuinely changed. Even Wong takes the stand and tells the judges and jury that he was the one who forced Emil to leave prison because he needed him for a mission. After the mission was over, Wong offered Emil his freedom, but Emil completely refused and chose to return to prison on his own. The judges and jury are deeply moved by everything they hear, but they postpone the verdict so they can take more time to review all the evidence and facts. A few days later, we see Jin back at the prison with Emil for the verdict. The court rules that Emil will be released, but there's one condition: he can never transform into the monster again under any circumstances. Of course, Emil agrees to the condition. And just like that, Emil is finally a free man. He thanks Jin for everything she did for him, and tells her that he's only a free man because of her. News of Emil's release spreads everywhere, and every major news channel starts talking about Jin, the lawyer who got a monster released from prison. Jin appears on a television interview where she defends both herself and her client, and for the first time in a while, she's able to improve their public image a little. After the interview, Jin heads home like normal, but suddenly 4 men appear in front of her carrying some kind of advanced weapons, and they try to attack her. Jin transforms into Miss Hulk and starts taking them down one by one. While she's fighting them, one of the men tries to inject her with something, but the needle can't even pierce her green skin. Jin manages to overpower all of them, forcing them to run away. Once the men get far enough away from her, they stop and start talking about what just happened. And that's when we discover the truth. Someone sent them there specifically to collect a sample of Jin's blood. It seems the person behind the attack wants Jin's blood so they can use it to transform themselves into a Hulk. Or worse, they could be planning to create an entire army of Hulks under their control. But for now, that's nothing more than a theory. We'll find out who is behind all of this and what they really want from Jin in the episodes to come. And with that, the first part of the series comes to an end.